Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tim.
Yo.
We recorded this about 28 days ago. Therefore, you're watching this or listening to it 28 days later. Because that's what we're talking about today, 28 days later. The 2002 Alex Garland written film, Danny Boyle directed. Obviously made big waves. This is obviously part of our Zombie Month, and it was also the winner of our Patreon vote for Zombie Month. And normally we have a vote every month at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, but because Tim's gone on paternity leave, we did like 3 votes in advance for some theme months that we were banking episodes for. One of them was Zombie Month, and the winner of that vote for the Zombie Month was 28 days later. So people wanted this, so here we are.
And which is funny is I'm not disagreeing with this, but I have seen some people say that they don't consider this a zombie movie.
Really? I've never seen that in my life.
The argument, I saw like someone I know was talking about it on Twitter, and I guess the argument they were making is that it's not like a zombie because it's more about an infectious disease that makes people want to murder and not necessarily eat people, which I don't know. I guess you don't see them eating people, but I still got the feeling that that's what what they're trying to do in this movie, you know? Like,
yeah, it still feels like it, yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. I guess there's a little bit of an argument to be made there, but I still feel like this is definitely a zombie movie.
I mean, it's a technicality. I mean, it still feels like a zombie. It still plays like a zombie movie. It still has zombie movie themes. It still has, like everything about it is still such a zombie movie that that's it's a weird hill to die on, is what I'm saying.
yeah, and I don't like not that I didn't want to call that person out or anything. I don't. That's not going to listen to the show. I doubt, but like, but I just thought that is an interesting point they brought up, even if I don't agree with it.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Obviously, it's a, really big title. People really care about 28 Days Later. It was very popular when it came out. It's an early, not the earliest Danny Boyle movie, but it's an early one. It's it's maybe one of the first things Cillian Murphy was in as kind of lead character.
Sure.
Christopher Eccleston's in there in a role. Naomi Harris. And my opinion of 28 Days Later has always been a little bit mixed. I've never been outright in love with it, like a lot of people were at the time. How's your history with this?
Well, I'm not sure where this is gonna fall in the reviews because we just did the Dawn of the Dead remake.
I think this will be after.
Okay. So the thing that's kind of interesting is I have a similar feeling to that where I think this movie is much better, but also though the same thing that I said with Dawn of the Dead, where I feel like I loved this movie when it came out, and I feel like I've liked it a little bit less each time I watched it. Like, not to the point where I hate it now or I think it's bad, but like, I remember really digging it when it first came out, and now when I go back and watch it, I'm just kind of like, it's okay. Like, there's some cool stuff in there, like, obviously some really good performances, but I don't know, at the end of the day, like, it's not really doing anything like too like crazy. Like, it still feels like pretty typical like zombie movie stuff. I do love seeing like these big giant like like England like landscapes, just like these big cities completely deserted. Like, that stuff does feel very like evocative and stuff. But I mean, overall though, like I wouldn't say I'm necessarily in love with it either at this point. And also, I do want to know why this movie looks like crap. Like,
we'll get into that because that's something that I think the further time we've gone on, the more like of an issue that's become with this movie. Because
cause I have the Blu-ray for this, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, wait, did I accidentally put in a VHS or something? Like, what is this like?
No, it does. The movie looks like shit, and we'll talk about why it looks like shit. I'll give my general thoughts first, though, and then I'll get into the quality, the technical issue. I think the movie does a lot of cool things. I think unlike Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, which took a lot from this movie and came out 2 years later. I think this does feel like it's from a directorial hand, and Alex Garland, who wrote it, I love his work typically. Like, all the stuff he's been on to do himself, especially as a director, I've really enjoyed. I think the TV show he did, Devs, was a little bit. That was a little bit more on the mixed side. There's a lot of stuff I loved about it, but it definitely was not quite the home run. But Ex Machina and Annihilation I love from Garland, and he also wrote in. I think all rumors are that he basically directed Dredd, even though he didn't get credited for it because of unset troubles or whatever. So
which movie?
Dredd.
Oh, Dredd. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's So I love. I'm not a big Danny Boyle guy, really. I like Sunshine, but I'm not like into a lot of Danny Boyle's other movies. Alex Garland, though, typically I love. So I can definitely feel some of the vibes that Garland prodding at social commentary and like try to do kind of that element, because unlike Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, this is trying to say something. That this does have topics that are brought up. I don't think it's necessarily the best example of these topics being brought up in a zombie movie. I think there's other better examples of most of the things this movie touches on. I think the appeal of this is that it does kind of feel sort of low budget documentary, and it is like a UK movie, so it was maybe appealing for at least UK audiences at the time to see London be deserted and see characters like these ones in this type of movie. And that was probably, and Brendan Gleeson I didn't mention, who I like a lot actually. Brendan Gleeson shows up in this movie, and he's really good. Do you know who that is, Tim?
Patrick Gleason's father.
I mean, that's accurate, I think. Yeah. But did you know when I say Brendan Gleeson, do you picture him? Do you know who it is?
He's the dad character.
He's the dad in this, yeah. But he's also he's in Braveheart. He was in Paddington 2. So it's probably the last thing I saw him in. But he's in a bunch of stuff. He's been in like hundreds of roles over the years. I believe he's Irish, much like Cillian Murphy. A lot of Irish representation in this movie.
Damn.
But
it's called the Lep effect.
The Lep. So I think it does a lot of really solid things. I think the mood as like the early scenes are playing out, where Cillian Murphy's woken up in the hospital and everything's happened in these 28 days, which again, totally. you can clearly see The Walking Dead took inspiration from this. It had to have done.
I think Robert Kirkman has said that it is a very strange coincidence, because I think the comic book like comes out around the same time, but it is like the exact same premise, and obviously I don't think neither person some random comic book writer probably didn't know what some random but I mean I don't know, maybe he's lying.
I thought the Walking Dead comic book started like a couple of years later. I thought it was like 2004ish, but I could be wrong. I'm just doing that from vague memory, so I actually don't know.
I mean, yeah, I could be wrong too. I just going by like stuff that I thought I heard him say that like in interviews, but maybe I'm wrong too.
It's coincidence. I mean, look, there's nothing wrong with taking the idea of the character we follow being someone who's woken up from a coma and therefore is only experiencing all this for the first time, so they're discovering it like the audience are. It's a simple story mechanic.
Yeah.
And I think there's parts of it I like less as I've watched it again, but there's parts that I used to hate that I don't hate as much as well. I'm kind of in this weird place where I've always kind of been in this mixed, but the elements that I like and dislike have kind of changed a little bit as times have went on. Yeah. I used to always hate the last like 40 minutes of this movie, and it's still my least favorite part, but I don't hate it as much this time. I kind of respected a little bit more what it was doing on this viewing. So, but before we get into anything else, let's talk about why it looks like garbage. So, it was shot on video. That's the thing. It was basically shot on a Pro-Am video camera, which is. And this is the thing, in 2020, if someone shoots on a Pro-Am video camera, it's not that bad, because a Pro-Am video camera now is at least 1080, if not 4K, and will look, whatever. This is a Pro-Am video camera from, when they shot this in 2001, in SD. This movie basically has no benefits from being, like, on Blu-ray, let alone 4K now. It's a movie that was shot. The best example I have for this actually is, me and Tara have been reviewing The Twilight Zone, and The Twilight Zone looks fantastic. The remaster on Blu-ray, it looks wonderful because it was shot in 35mm film, and it looks glorious, restored, like all the details there. It looks stunning, gorgeous, and that's why movies typically, even old movies going all the way back to the 30s, look really good when they've been cleaned up because they were shot on this high quality film. It was this great standard that was in place. And even today, like, still some directors still insist on using film. Nolan, Tarantino, and the movies look great still compared to digital 4K that's used for a lot of stuff, or in some cases 8K or whatever. Videotape is just as good as it was at the time, and there's a few episodes of Twilight Zone that were shot on tape, and they look like trash compared to the rest. And this movie is shot on videotape, essentially. Actually, it's not tape; it's digital video, I think. But the point being is that it was shot in standard definition video, and as a result, as time has went, it always looked rougher at the time because it was shot from on a lower quality source. But as time has went on, as we've gotten used to HD and we're now getting used to 4K, this movie looks bad. Like, it looks really bad.
Yeah, like it feels like, I don't know, like a dad shooting like a family picnic or something, like movie. A home movie. Yeah. And it's like it's not like I watch this movie all the time, but it is kind of jarring. Yeah, like anytime I do put it on, that it's like, oh yeah, I forgot, I gotta get used to this. But I mean, I don't know if you did any research or anything, but like, was there any reason why they would have done it this way, or is it just like, I don't know, was that how they were filming movies at the time, or was it like a stylistic choice that Danny Boyle wanted to try this?
Well, it's I think it's a combo. It's not so much that they had to. The movie had like an $8 million budget. They could have used it. It wasn't like how other movies were shot. Movies from the entire history of movies look good on film, and there's no reason why it couldn't have been doing that. So I don't know if this was the key reason, or if this was like an added benefit, and it was more of a stylistic thing because they wanted to feel gritty and documentary like, which I would argue against it, because you can have gritty and documentary like, but still have it look good on film and still feel grimy. Look at Texas Chainsaw, the original Evil Dead. They were shot in 60mm. They look grimy. They feel grimy to look at, but they still look good when you transfer them to 1080, 4K, whatever. They look detailed still. The detail's still in the grime. Whereas here it looks like bad video that looks almost like it's like blurry and out of focus at times when it's not supposed to. But one of the benefits was that the scenes where they shot in like the big empty like places like outside Parliament and stuff like that, they had like short windows to shoot like early in the morning where they could like cut off traffic for like maybe 40 minutes, and it's just easier to set up shots with the video camera than it was like doing a proper film camera. That's one of the benefits. I don't know if that was the key reason, if it was the style came first and that was like an added benefit, or if that was the key reason. It's like, oh well, we'll do a stylistic thing then. Honestly, it doesn't hold up. I think the visual quality of this movie is a big hurdle. When the first 5-10 minutes as I'm trying to get into it, I'm like, oh my god, this looks like trash. And again, anyone who tries to defend it and says that you can, that style, they want it to feel grimy, they want it to feel like it's, it's like an old like it's not found footage obviously, but they want it to feel like it almost found footage in style. Well, like, yeah, you can still do that with film. It can still look like more appealing to the eye. It doesn't have to look like shit. And
I mean, you know me, I'm not a frame snob. Like, I still I still watch like my betas and stuff, and I like it, and like but yeah, this was even like too much for me. I was having trouble at some points where it's just like, it's just not really appealing to look at.
Like I say, back in the DVD days, it didn't it looked worse than other movies just because of the source, but it didn't stick out as much because when I first saw it, I don't remember it being that jarring or something that stood out. But we all have bigger TVs now. We're used to like 1080 and 4K. You whack this on, and it's like, why does this look like someone found a VHS tape that was stuck down the back of a couch in 1992? Like, it's jarring, and
it sucks. Like, I guess, I guess there's like no way to really like clean it up anymore. It's a shame because I do like not saying that like, oh okay, yeah, if it looked a little better it'd be an instant 10 out of 10 or anything, but I think it would definitely help a lot. Like,
it's so weird because it's this movie that people really care about, and like there is a big audience for it that think it's a cult favorite, and it's a big staple of 2000s horror, and it's so weird to me that I literally own Blu-rays of like these weird like D-grade horror films that have been remastered by like Scream Factory or whatever, like a couple of weeks ago for the bonus episode on the Ace, I you know, I did TerrorVision. I have TerrorVision on Blu-ray, and it looks great. It looks you know, it looks like a film that was shot in film, and it looks appealing to the eye, and it's high quality, and it's crisp, and you can see the grain, and it feels natural, and in this movie that is well known and people care about, looks like this. It's heartbreaking. It's kind of heartbreaking. It's not as heartbreaking as the Buffy remaster that they tried to do, but I mean that can still be safe because that was shot in film if they ever actually put the money into it. But this is just a case of they can never do anything to this to fix it.
Man, that's wild.
Yeah, just how it was shot, and then we're stuck with this forever. Now, I suppose in a weird way, I'm glad that I don't love the film like other people do, because at least for me, it's not as much of an issue. Because I don't know how many more times I'm going to care about watching this again now. Like, you know, once I've reviewed it for this, it's like, well, it's not a movie that I'm likely to say I'm in the mood for 28 Days Later and put back on. I'm probably good now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe like every couple of years, I might get a little itch for it, but yeah, it's not like a yearly rewatch for me. Yeah, every now and again, sure, but no.
I have to buckle just because I wheel away. you can steer the ship for 10 seconds, Timmy.
Nah, that's good.
Oh, Jesus Christ. All right. So as far as the actual sort of like the movie though goes, the characters and whatnot, there is a visceral quality to it. The actual like, I mean, the visuals look bad because the quality of the image, but the actual like cinematography and the choice of like editing and all those sort of elements, those are all solid. You know, it's a well directed movie in that sense. And
then we talked about like, you know, Fast Zombies with Dawn of the Dead, but I mean, as far as I know, like this was kind of the first movie to really do that. I mean, yeah, maybe there were smaller movies that did it before, but at least to my knowledge, this was like the first time seeing like a zombie kind of portrayed this way, and yeah, it was kind of like, you know, a very simple change, but also at the same time like, wow, why has no one ever thought of this before?
Yeah, like you say, there's probably some weird obscure examples that someone might, you know, like actually, but yeah, this is the main one that kind of introduced everyone to the fast zombie. It's fine. Like I do prefer the classic slow zombie, but I have no problem with this as an option for certain movies. There's definitely, you know, there's other zombie movies that I prefer with fast zombies to this one. You know, I think Rex, probably my favorite. But maybe there's another one. I'd have to think about it. Because they weren't fast and Train to Busan, right? They were still slow in that.
Good question. I don't remember, honestly.
Well, we'll find out how the sequel to that handles them very soon. No, I mean, it's not soon for us in recording, but it's soon for you in terms of release schedule, audience. Yeah. Peninsula is coming.
Hell yeah.
So, yeah. I think what stuck out to me this time in the movie is that I think one of the problems I've had in the past is I always felt that the last act was kind of weird and oddly mean versus the rest of the film, where the characters that we meet along the way for the rest of the film are so likable for the most part, and, you know, endearing and grow on each other, grow on us, and then it kind of gets this sort of, you know, the dark social commentary comes in towards the end. But I think I appreciated it more on this viewing that's kind of the point. That everyone is so nice, like there's no almost threat from each other, and it's, you know, the dangerous humans comes later, and that's kind of your big third act like antagonist and like problem. And again, you mentioned in the Dawn of the Dead review, that's a very common thing for zombie movies, that okay, they're trying to survive from zombies, but then the human, the real monster is us. It always is us. Yeah. And that's what comes in at the end. I still do feel like it goes on a little bit too long though, that section of the film, because the movie is almost 2 hours long, and I really do think that last, like, because I always in my head thought it was the last third. It's actually the last half. They get to the point, it's only an hour into the movie when that section starts, so it's a good like 50 minutes.
That really surprised me.
Yeah,
because I thought like, okay, yeah, I know, yeah, this will be like the last like 20-30 minutes or so, and then being like, oh no, geez, how is there this much left of this? Yeah,
there's almost an hour left. I don't remember the section being that long, and I think that's maybe the biggest problem with that section, is just how long it goes. I think the concepts and the ideas are solid enough though in terms of what it's doing, and you know, I think this time as well I noticed the arcs a little bit more. I think the two main characters, which is, you know, Cillian Murphy's character and Naomi Harris's character, she's the one who of course he meets after, you know, wandering around for a day. She saves him from a zombie, and her arc I think I like the most out of the two of them, because hers is kind of the more human arc, where she's kind of given up, she's kind of like jaded, she doesn't really believe in being happy, it's all just about survival and there's nothing else. And her arc for the film, and I know this is a spoiler to say, her arc is very much about, no, there is a reason to still care about people, there's still a reason to care about love and care about actually wanting happiness more than just surviving. And Cillian Murphy's is kind of the opposite in a way, where he's kind of not ready to kill anything yet when he wakes up, because he's just been thrust into this world. But of course, ultimately, he's going to learn to fight back and you know, and kill and whatever. And there's a little bit more to it than that, but that's kind of the gist of it. But I appreciate those arcs a little bit more in this time. I will say. There's definitely a couple of things that feel a little bit like tropey in a way that I think. Even at the time, there was a montage at one point of them like going around like a supermarket, like just like, oh, we can just get whatever we want, so let's have the shopping montage. And I'm like, you know what, we kind of did this in Dawn of the Dead, the original. I mean, like, you know, this is kind of a staple of the genre almost. It's like, hey, it's a zombie apocalypse or any type of post-apocalypse, we can do what we want, we can just walk in and take things. And yeah, in the movie, it's not so much about consumerism, but it is definitely about society breaking down and the true nature of humans and how everything kind of... Actually, I was wondering, like, do you think there's any sort of like weird messaging, or it's just kind of how it starts? Because at the start of the movie, it kind of presents like the reason why this happens is because there's like these monkeys that are being tested on for pharmaceuticals, and it's the people who break in to like set them free that have released the virus. And I was almost like taken aback and sort of thought to myself, because I forgot about this scene, and I was like, is there some sort of weird like anti testing message here?
Like it's a little strange because I mean, first of all, I do love seeing I love chimps, so it's always nice to see them in a movie, especially a horror movie. But I mean, you know, part of it could be that, you know, they're trying to, I mean, maybe they're trying to say the message is like, oh yeah, this was all brought on because of, you know, the evils of animal testing. But then at the same time, it's like, or maybe is the message that like these I don't know, like what would you call them, like eco-terrorists kind of, or something, these people are always so concerned with trying to right some injustice that they don't stop and think about the consequences of, you know, what they're doing. Like, I don't know if it's specifically trying to say it, but you can like take that message. If
I was trying to make this so it's more balanced, I would say what it's doing here is that it's like, okay, so this virus is man's fault, we did this, right, because we're shitty, but it also got released because the other people, who arguably are the more morally noble ones, they don't actually stop to listen to the scientists who say no, they've got it, because he's actually yelling, they've got something that's going to like spread if you let them out. And they immediately bites them because they don't listen to him. So I guess it's maybe criticizing communication in each other and how they have to, like, you know, humans have to like sort of communicate and bond and respect each other, which is kind of a theme throughout the movie. And ultimately, like, that's why, you know, all the antagonist characters in the third act are kind of these villains, and our main little group have kind of like learned to do this with each other, and that's why they're more worthy of survival if they do indeed survive. Well, one of the things I actually learned about is I was looking things up before we started, is that there was like 3 alternate endings, and apparently on some movie channels they added one of the alternate endings to after the credits, and also apparently later screenings when it came out in the US added it as a post-credit scene as well, because it tested well, one of the alternate endings, something like that. Very interesting. I never really knew there was an alternate ending. I've only ever known the actual ending.
I mean, maybe I knew it at one point if I watched it on like a DVD or something, but I don't think I know it at this point.
It's probably on your Blu-ray, I assume.
Probably.
But cast are good, you know, Cillian Murphy, Naomi Harris, Brendan Gleeson, you know, it's a solid cast. Like, it's a cast of, Like, you've got a lot of talented people involved in this movie. There's no lack of talent.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. Well, I guess we're about ready to go into the spoilers then. So I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers at the time of recording, and keep in mind we're recording these episodes very in advance, so this list may have changed wildly by now. But thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Board Now, Al Tribesman, Christopher Moy, Brett Williams, and David Brown. They are Patreon producers for the month of, well, recording, which is November, but whatever. So thank you very much to them. That means they are $20 or more on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. But you can, of course, support us for much less than that. You can support us over there for as little as $1 per month and help keep all the content coming. You get access to all of our bonus episodes, back catalogue. They're on pause right now, but they'll be back in the not too distant future once Tim's back from paternity leave. But they'll also get access to voting rights at the $5 tier, early access at the $5 tier. So go and have a look and see if you're interested in any of that stuff. And if you can't, support us on Patreon, don't feel too bad. You can hit the like button. Liking super important on YouTube, and it is the free way to support us. And it'll help us find more audience members on YouTube. They'll share us around a little bit more. So yeah, do any and all of those things. Thank you very much. And here endeth the plugging section. Tim, sometimes you've got like a what with that mustache right now, I can see you playing like the sort of character that John Lovitz might play in like a movie.
That's fair.
Yeah,
I take it.
The thought just occurred to me as I was looking at you there, like staring into your deep brown eyes or whatever. I can't tell what color they are. Your camera quality's not that good. Anyway, so yes, full spoilers for 28 Days Later. And of course, the whole reason we have that scene at the start with this, the scientist and the eco-terrorists like letting the chimps out, is it so the movie can say 28 days later afterwards, right? That's the point. Right. That's why we have that scene to start it. But Kelly Murphy wakes up, and it's super eerie. Do you know what? I did notice some very kind of, and I don't have a problem with product placement in the sense that it actually feels more natural to have real items than fake ones.
Sure.
But in fact, we did Dawn of the Dead last episode, and I actually noticed on the dinner table at one point there was it was like PFC, like a bucket of chicken, but it wasn't KFC. And it was kind of distracting because it wasn't real.
Yeah.
Whereas here there's a lot of like Pepsi and there's like Maltesers at one point. But I did feel like there was a couple of moments where they were really like because at one point she says like, "Hey, do you want Pepsi or Lil?" And he's like, "Oh, you got any Tango?" And I know Tim's like, we don't have most of those drinks. You have Pepsi, obviously, but to me that was like, oh god, like okay, I get it. You're really like going, yeah, we've got a Tango somewhere in here. Like, all right, calm down. You don't have to draw attention to it too much. But so you have like this like 5-10 minute section of him walking around the city, and it's all quiet and eerie, and it's it's kind of the part that everyone remembers from this movie for the most. It's very distinct. It's very eerie. And then once it gets into the actual, a couple of characters find them because Naomi Harris isn't alone. There's another guy there named Mark and they kind of rescue him and explain what's going on and explain.
Hi, Mark.
Oh, hi, Mark. Explain the virus to us, and like the society kind of broke down. There's no government anymore, and this is all fine. It's all fine. This is one of these weird things though, where I feel
more
like
toilet paper.
Actually, there's a line later on in the movie where someone's like argues that obviously the entire of the UK is screwed, but like across the Atlantic everything should be fine. Like how would it spread like over the sea or over mountains and stuff? And I sort of chuckled for a second, thinking, well, if 2020 has taught me anything, it very easily spreads. However, I did think about it a little bit more. And to be fair, given that this virus turns you into a rage zombie within 10 seconds, I have to think that no one got let on a plane who was already infected. So, okay, like I think there's a reason to think maybe other places are okay. And I think the sequel kind of confirms that, actually. I've only seen that once. It was a long ass time ago.
The sequel actually starts with a guy in America getting a package from Amazon, and he says, "Oh, good, my British chimp is here." And then
was there a hole in the box? So the chimp could breathe. I mean, not that it needs to if it's undead, but I wasn't trying to make any sort of sick joke there. Just before anyone.
I gotcha. Yeah.
Where it takes that the wrong way. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the stuff that it's kind of weird because like maybe it wasn't a big deal because the zombie movies at the time, like obviously there'd been the big classics, but this was kind of the start of like the resurgence where zombie movies were starting to come out a lot in the 2000s. So it probably was fine at the time. You know, being after that era though, and having, you know, even more zombie movies since, like all this stuff what they're explaining how society fell, and I'm like, okay, you know what? Let's just get through this quickly because I'm sick of hearing this. I'm sick of hearing this part because we'll just do it in every zombie movie. It gets around some of the other things though. It doesn't seem like they have to shoot them in the head in this. It's just kind of like, I mean, because the disadvantage the characters have in this, and it's actually quite realistic because they're in the UK, is that none of these characters have guns. Like they have machetes, they have like bats and stuff. They do not have guns, and that's very realistic because people in the UK, by and large, do not have firearms. It's just not a thing. So that's
because you guys don't have freedom.
As a matter of fact, Tim, we do have freedom.
What? Then how do you protect it?
We have freedom along with free healthcare, and gun control.
I can't understand any of the words you're saying. One of the things that's like interesting too is like, yeah, we're saying like, oh yeah, this is the kind of thing that popularized you know, fast running zombies, but like I feel like the other innovation is the you kind of mentioned it, the how quick the turnaround is, because it's like, do they say exactly, is it 10 seconds? 10
to 20 seconds, I think it's the exact sentence she says.
Yeah, so like one of the things that's like interesting about that is that instantly takes off the table the whole like, you know, trope of a character gets bit and then they have to hide it from the group kind of thing. Like I like that.
I mean, hell, we actually kind of get like the equivalent of it in this, in the sense that, you know, Brendan Gleeson, when they arrive, because eventually when they get to the other characters,
I feel so bad for him.
Yeah, they arrive at the roadblock because eventually they're looking for this place because there's a radio signal of this like military branch sort of saying, hey, we've got a safe haven, come here. And a lot of the movies them traveling to get there, and when they get there about an hour way through, he gets because he's been a very like nice, likable guy the whole time, and the first time he ever gets angry or loses his temper is when they get here and it seems like they're already dead or there's nothing here and it was all for nothing, and it's like he kind of breaks down, and I actually kind of like that scene because of it. But he kind of just hangs out somewhere near the other characters on the road, and there's a crow above him that just sort of like drops some blood and it lands in his eye, and that's enough to turn them.
Jeez.
So we get this sort of scene where he sort of realizes he's about to turn, and he yells at his daughter, who's another, you know, character here, to not, you know, to stay away from him, and then he just quickly turns. So that's kind of the equivalent, is they have to do it in like 20 seconds where he's turning, he realizes he's turning, he yells for her to stay away, and then, you know, the soldiers come in, and that sort of sets up the next part of the movie. I think that's always the thing that's maybe that I never loved when I first saw it, and I don't dislike it as much now, but it's still a little bit jarring, is that the movie does change so much at this moment. Like, because up until this point, it's, you know, Mark gets killed quite quickly because he's at Cillian Murphy wants to go and see his parents, and they're already dead, but they had a peaceful death, which is nice, because Mark talks about how like he had to watch his parents, like, and his sister die, and it was this horrific thing, and but he gets killed that night. So then it's just Cillian Murphy and Naomi, and when they're walking back, they see like these Christmas lights flashing in an apartment, and they go up, and Brendan Gleeson's got this riot gear that he's found somewhere, and he's like helping them out, and he's very pleasant, and he introduces them to his like teenage daughter. And this is one of these things where I immediately went, oh god, like, not this time, but the first time I watched it, like, teenage daughter, oh god, but, you know, like is this going to be like a protective thing? Is it going to be like people who are going to, like, you know, and the movie ultimately goes there. That's what the soldiers are all about, is the idea that, like, the idea of finding a woman in the post-apocalypse is kind of rare, so they're all a bunch of rapey assholes, and that's kind of where we get to later on. But to your surprise, for the first like hour of the movie, like, these characters are all very pleasant to each other. Obviously Naomi at first is very like, no, we don't need them, they're going to slow us down, but that's kind of, like I said, her arc is that by the time we get to later in the movie, she does grow to care about these characters. She sees through them being happy as father and daughter that she does want happiness, and she admits that, and by the end, you know, she does like want this with Cillian and all the rest of it. But we have these happy montages of them, like, shopping, and like there's a really funny scene where Brendan Gleeson in the supermarket is like, no, don't take that booze, that's shit. No, this one's got a nice aftertaste, and he like grabs like 4 bottles. And even this is a nice little touch that I appreciated, is that later on, after he's already dead, but it's a scene where Christopher Eccleston, who's the head soldier, is essentially going to explain to Cillian Murphy that, yeah, we lured you in here because I promised the men women, and that's what you're here for. And, I want you to be on board with that and join us and be a part of our team, but, like, they're here to, basically be sex dolls. I mean, he claims, like, rebuilding society, but it's not that. They're all obnoxious and disgusting, and, well, not all of them. There's 1 or 2 who are a bit better. Notably, the only Scottish character is the only soldier who's like, no, this is wrong. We are better than this. But... Anyway, yeah, but he serves him a drink, and I thought this is something that I only noticed for the first time on this viewing, but you can see the box next to him when he's pouring the drink. It's actually the booze that Brendan Gleeson got from the supermarket. It's a wonderful little dark touch that he's taken this booze for himself. Like, he's taken the booze. The idea that he's going to then take the people, which is even darker. So
yeah, that's great. I didn't even notice that either. That's really nice.
It's a nice touch. It's a really nice little touch. But... yeah, so I appreciated this back section a little bit because of those small touches, and because it, the idea of like Naomi Harris's character caring about the Hannah, the teenager, and like trying to, like, because when it becomes clear these men are going to like dress them up and then rape them, she tries to give like the teenager some Valium, because basically like, hey, at least you won't care. Like, I'm trying to make it so you don't have to experience it with all your emotions. Like you'll feel kind of like, you won't feel it, basically. You'll be too out of it. And it's this really dark idea, and it's really sad. But the idea that she cares this much about taking care of her is like a big character change for her. Because from the start of the movie, she's like, "Nah, you'll slow me down. Like, I'm all about myself and just surviving and whatever." It's about them finding their humanity, and the contrast of these soldiers when they get there, of these vicious assholes and all the rest of it. But I think probably the second thing people remember about this movie, outside of the opening stuff, is probably the music that plays. As Cillian Murphy is able to escape death from being shot, and releases, because they've got like a zombie on chains to with the idea that they might learn something from it. But he releases the zombie, and we get this sequence as one by one the soldiers are bit by the zombie and they're running around, and Cillian Murphy eventually has to kill with his bare hands, like the worst soldier who's been the most rapey, for lack of a better term. Yeah.
It feels very it's kind of funny, like you mentioned, like kind of earlier, like when they're shopping and stuff, kind of feels like Dawn of the Dead, and then this whole back half basically feels like Day of the Dead. Like even to the point of like, oh yeah, we have like a zombie chained up and everything that gets like let loose in the later half.
Yeah, it's obviously the big moment here after he kills the not the last, because Eccleston's still alive, and because he was separate, but when he kills this soldier who was with Naomi, but he's all covered in blood and he's running around and he's very angry, so he actually kind of appears to almost look like a zombie in this scene to her. And one of the big things she said earlier on is that, if you turn, I won't hesitate. Like, in a heartbeat, I'll kill you if you turn. And she goes to slice him with the machete, but she hesitates. And Eddie sort of says that was longer on the heartbeat. And it's like the idea that she's grown human enough that the hesitation is what saved his life. Is it's kind of a great dramatic point to that's why I like her arc more than his, because his arc is a bit more about him becoming more of a the person who can survive in a zombie apocalypse. I kind of like her story being the one where no, she's already too jaded and too far gone, and it's about her coming back to humanity. I guess it's more hopeful and it's more optimistic and whatever. But
yeah, I wonder if there's something to be said of this whole thing. It's a it's not just like a zombie thing. It's like a rage thing. Like they're infected with like this kind of rabies rage virus, and then I wonder if there's something there where towards the end here, this is what Murphy's character is doing, is he's basically like overcome with rage as well, so he's pretty much acting like similar to like one of these zombie things, but it's because these like soldiers basically forced him to become it. Yeah, they've driven him to it.
I mean, I think it's the whole idea about the rage thing is to sort of it's almost being very on the nose with what it's trying to do metaphor wise. I think one of the things that I don't like is a whole. I've never liked the dinner scene there's like a scene where the soldiers like have them at the dinner table, and they sit and kind of debate various things, and Eccleston starts talking about, well, 28 days before all this happened, all I saw was people killing each other anyway, and the same 4 weeks before that I saw people killing each other. Like, it was kind of like being a bit heavy-handed, I thought, at some of these scenes with its messaging. I don't think it really needed it. And I think it's maybe it's stuff like the dinner scene and them trying to have this kind of weird, like, I don't know, like, home life that they've built for themselves. It always just sort of struck me as kind of weird and something that distracted me from what, the real danger was here, which is them sort of like their attitude towards the ladies and what they were going to do to them. And but when they get out, Eccleston shoots Killian, and it's actually Hannah who's driving the car, because it's like a taxi cab that her dad had. She drives it back into a zombie so that Eccleston gets killed, and then she drives him away. I've never been fond of the freeze frame, because they drive through the gate and it like does this like really harsh freeze frame,
weird.
and then says 28 days later. So for those of you keeping track, that's actually what 56.
56,
yeah, 56 days later now we're at this point. Although some days have passed since he woke up, so it's actually more than that.
That's true. Yeah,
it's been probably close to a week since he woke up at that point. But so we get, they make a big sign saying, hello to a plane, and they're getting rescued. So it ends with a very happy, saccharine ending, which is fine. I some of the big things we sort of glossed over, sort of moments wise. There's a whole scene in the tunnel, like, so we have this sort of big tense scene in the tunnel when they're driving. Again, there's another sort of happy scene before this, because they get like a flat tire, but there's a really happy scene of them like driving, and they're all kind of like, this is all like, it's like a roller coaster, we're all happy and cheery. But they break down in the tunnel, they have to change the tire, but we have all the rats running. It's like, they're running from infected. So this isn't like the Dawn of the Dead remake. The animals do get attacked and are a victim of these things.
I say let them have the rats.
Sure, yes. Yes, let them have the rats, yes. But it's a good scene, though, because like Hannah is the one changing the tire, and she has to do it quickly. And because it's quick, because it'll take too long to like set up the jack and all that, they literally have like all the other characters like lifting up the car enough, just enough that she can get the tire changed. So it's this race against the time. So it's an effective sequence. It's good. I think the images of the rats are all scurrying, and the shadows of the zombies coming. It looks good. It's a good sequence.
I agree.
Yeah. There's the other little set piece, which is Killian like going into the little store and like having to kill the zombie boy.
Oh, right.
Because that's the first time he actually kills one, and it's kind of like a big moment for him.
Yeah.
But alternatively, you have the quieter scenes where they're having a picnic, and then like Brendan Gleeson notices some horses running around that are uninfected, so they're just happy. And
that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's the thing, is that it gives you all these examples of them getting kind of like some peace and like sort of growing as a family unit, and then the soldiers completely interrupt that, and that's okay. That's kind of what you expect, but I think it's just how weird it gets and how much of it doesn't like gradually introduce them or anything like that. It's like it's such a paradigm shift at that point in the movie that it always feels a little bit of a jolt to me, which is probably by design, but I don't know if I like it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's strange. I don't mind the story aspect to it. I just do think it really needs to be cut down.
Sure.
Because it shouldn't be like half the movie.
Yeah, I was like baffled. Like, the dinner scene for the most part I would cut out. The fact that they've got and it's almost, I get what it's doing. It's trying to like foreshadow the idea that they want the women, because they've got this guy who's like the designated chef, and he's terrible at it. Like, he makes an omelette and the eggs were off, so they spit it out. And immediately Eccleston's like, well, I hope one of you can cook, because we're really kind of lacking in that department. So I think, that's what that's kind of doing. It's setting up this idea of like their, sexist, misogynistic views of like what they're going to use the women for. It's not about finding other humans that are survived. It's about a resource, essentially, that they're looking at. And like, I get that it's all leading to that, but I don't know if we necessarily needed to do all these extra little bits teasing it before we got there. I think just, and there is some powerful elements to it, though. Like, I think there's a scene where, like, because they've got all these like floodlights set up and like tripwires in case zombies like get close to the big house, and there's a moment where the alarm goes off and they go and take care of the zombies, the soldiers do, and when they come back, Naomi's like holding her machete, she's like ready to fight. And there is kind of like a powerful moment here where the main sort of shitty one kind of like takes and says, oh, you won't need this, sweetheart, you've got me to protect you. And she's been such this strong, like, fighting character throughout all the movie that having these assholes just immediately kind of belittle her and make her feel weak by teasing her and then like saying, oh, hey, maybe you can come by and, like, you know, he says, he basically pretends that Machete's his dick and talks about, like, you know, his big shaft or whatever. But it's like immediately saying these things to her and immediately like reducing her to just this is a kind of a powerful, infuriating scene where you really want him to die. Like, immediately you're like, I hope you die horribly. And he does get his fingers poked out with thumbs. That's what Killian does to him later. But so there is some really good moments in that last half, but it does go on far too long.
Yeah,
it goes on far too long. Is there any other like set pieces or sequences that you want to?
I mean, I guess we talked about it a little bit, but there's the beginning stuff. You know, like when he's I guess we didn't talk about the church. I like that scene. Where like you kind of like see all the people like in the pews and stuff, and then you have like the one kind of priest like running towards him. Like, I always thought that was kind of cool. And then like the stuff when,
which I mean, I think just on that, I think we maybe have to talk about the symbolism there, that he can't find anyone. He's lonely. It's getting dark. And he essentially finally, you know, we don't even know if he's religious or not. It's never really brought up. But the idea that he eventually goes to a church because it's like the place where he might find help. You know, it's like the last resort is like turning to God. It's kind of like, right? But when he goes there, that's where the real danger is waiting for him for the first time. Like, you know, so I'm not saying that the movie's saying anything about religion. I'm more saying that the movie's saying to him that there is no God here to help you. Like, you're screwed. You know, it's setting up how bad the stakes are, I think, by having him finally resort to that place, and not only for that place to turn around and say, no, this is where the danger really is. You know, I think there's a nice like setup to the tone of the movie there.
Yeah, no, there's definitely like some good stuff there, and then just like on a stylistic level, I think it just kind of looks cool. You know, like these dead bodies and the priests and stuff, and then like I do like this kind of opening segment. I feel like is all very exciting when he meets you know, the characters, and you know, when they like go to that house and like Mark gets bit and stuff. Like I don't really have much to say other than I just think that stuff is cool. And then and I will say not that I I don't want to sound like it like I don't want a happy ending or anything, but like I don't know, the end is just way too like I don't know, saccharine and sweet for me. Like, it's just like way too happy, where it's like we have this perfect little family.
It's a bit of a tone shift, because there was a tone shift when we got to the house with the soldiers, and then there's another tone shift for the last scene. Funny enough, all the alternate endings are darker, because apparently all of the alternate endings have Cillian Murphy's character die.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, so maybe one of those endings are better. I have no idea. But yeah, I don't know.
It's not like I don't hate the ending. Like, you know, I like that they're, you know, that they're doing okay, but it's just something about the way it's portrayed, where it's just like they're so happy, and it's like, oh, wave to the nice pilot, man. You know.
I mean, I like it in the sense that they earned the right to survive because they were good people and they were good to each other. And all of the, you know, the soldier who thought this is just the way the world is and we have to rebuild in this really kind of, you know, barbaric way. And like, I like the kind of the moral of that. I do kind of agree the scene itself, though, is really like the music's really playing up and they're all smiling and waving and, you know, it's just it's a bit in the much side. It's funny because, like, obviously I've spoken about a lot of positive qualities of the movie, and I do think there's a lot of good things in here. But I've never quite crossed the line into loving it. I think it's a good movie. I think it's a good movie that unfortunately looks like shit because of how it was shot. But I think it's a good movie that I don't love nearly as much as a lot of other. You know, I have like a top 5 or top 10 zombie movies, and I don't think this quite makes the cut. But I do get why other people love it, and I do think there's some merit in there.
No, for sure. Definitely wouldn't be in my top 5, maybe top 10. And again, I was definitely one of those people that like loved this when it came out. Like I was, banging that drum, and it's yeah, it's a shame that I still like it. It's just it sucks that it has gone down a little bit for me over the years.
Yeah,
and especially since the reasons for it, like it's not like stuff that like is unsolvable. Like really, if you just are able to, I mean, well, obviously, like, yeah, you can't really fix the look of it now, but it's like, yeah, if it was just filmed on film, like, and looked better, and yeah, and then I think the length is an issue. Like, if it was cut down to maybe a nice trim, like, hour 40, hour 35 or something, like, I feel like it would do so much to bring me back up to really digging it. But yeah, it's a shame that nothing we can really do about that.
Yeah, I agree. The back half does need trimmed. It's just too long. But yeah. Also, I always thought the rain in this movie, like, we were seeing it's like raining during that last like section where the music's playing, and he's like getting ready to like run into the house. There's some sort of really weird, and I don't know if it's just because of the video quality or if it's like the fake sprinklers they were using were pumping the water out in a weird way, but it has this kind of weird kind of look to it. It's hard to describe.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I agree that there's something that feels off about it. I assume probably just more again just having to do with the way they filmed it. But yeah, I don't know.
I wonder if it's because light rain doesn't show up well on film, and I wonder if it shows up even less on this type of video.
Maybe.
So maybe they had to like make it so heavy that it just looks really weird. To show up on this type of camera. Yeah, that's my only guess. But hey, and it's actually on the rain. It's actually mentioned early on because like Brendan Gleeson's got a bunch of buckets up on the roof to catch water, and he makes a kind of a joke. Is like, I can't believe that we're struggling for rain in England, like, because the UK typically it rains often enough. It's not a place that gets droughts. Like, it's pretty easy going. So I do think there's a very symbolic thing there that it does rain. Like when he finally unleashes at the end, like it does start pouring the rain as he's able to survive. Like finally the rain came, kind of thing. There's stuff there. So there's definitely setup and payoff. There's definitely little touches like that between the Brendan Gleeson's booze and the rain, and like how it shows you certain things about like the character's predicament. I think there's a lot of smart touches, but.
I like stuff like they, like earlier is, teaching his daughter how to drive, and then, by the end of the movie, she's, taking over the cab and stuff. Like, yeah, there's definitely good storytelling in here. Like, you can see that this is, not something that was just like, slapped together by, some no talent hack. Like, there's definite chops in there in the script.
Sure. All right. Well, I guess it's time to rate the movie then, Timmy. What are you giving it?
I'll still give it a pretty decent score. I think I'll just go with a flat 7. I think there's a lot of good ideas. There's stuff to be enjoyed. But yeah, I mean, again, it's just the look of it, and the runtime, and a few things like that here and there just really bring it down. And then and again, it's another one of those things where it feels like there's a lot of stuff that it probably did first, but then there is, but after watching 50 million zombie movies and going back to this, you can't help but see like stuff that maybe is a little tropey, but
yeah, and it's
again,
not that,
don't want to hold it against it, but
well, it's one of those things where if we feel that way about this, it means that other places maybe did some of the things better, and therefore
that's true. Yeah,
that's like there's other things. Because I never dock points from Night of the Living Dead for things that other movies copied from it.
Right.
It's just a case of like, that's like the example where no, it was done so perfectly that first time that nothing's came close in that sense. I mean, that's going Dawn, but I feel like Dawn's doing different things. It's a zombie movie, but it's doing a different thing with the zombie movie. Anyway, so this is that is that. I will give. I'm going to be boring here and probably just give it a straight 7 as well. We're kind of on the same wavelength. I think it's a good movie. I don't love it, but it does a lot of really smart little things. It is a shame that it was shot on digital video in 2001 because it looks like absolute trash. But other than that, obviously if you're a horror movie person, you've not seen it yet, you should see it. It's definitely a staple of its time, and it is worth watching. So there you go, 28 Days Later. If you made it this far into the review, you can put the word in the comments. You can put the word omelette.
Okay. All right.
There's an omelette in there. It's relevant.
Sure.
All right, Tim, stop silently judging me for my choice of keyword, and get ready to pause, because here we go.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, pause. Wait, what? 7? Your rating? You're spoiling your rating, and
No, it's
the thumbnail.
2.
And
then this is as close as I could get to 8 on
what?
this hand.
I don't have 8 fingers on this hand, so it's just 25. Oh well, I don't know how to top that. I mean, I mentioned Patreon earlier. Support us on Patreon, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. $1 per month. Like and subscribe. Please do. All those things help. Catch us on Twitter at Screams Midnight. Even as Tim's on paternity leave right now, by the time you get this, you can get, I'm sure, random updates from him on there. I'm sure you'll happily update. We both post from that Twitter account, but Tim tends to be the wackier posts. So yes, so do that. Hopefully enjoying Zombie Month, and we'll have another one for you next time. But this has been Screams After Midnight, so thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, and we will see you next time.